Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is awesome!
Hello, welcome once again to Cheap Shot Entertainment. As ever, you are the Cheap Shot Nation, and I am your host, Luke. And we're going to take you through another classic review with the King of the Ring tournament well underway for this year's tournament. Something that hasn't happened since, let me get this right, about 2015. I think that's round about right, which was a network exclusive. It was a bit of a lackluster tournament. They are bringing it back. They're doing all of the qualifying rounds on Raw and SmackDown, with the finals being at Clash of Champions. And I hope they do something with this other than give someone the king gimmick whoever wins the tournament, because it used to be that when you won the King of the Ring tournament, you got a championship match against the world champion. Now, if that comes to fruition, I will love this tournament once again, as I always did before. But we're going to go back and look at the very first King of the Ring tournament. It wasn't actually the first one. It was just the first televised one. So that's between you and me. So we're going to go and look back at King of the Ring 1993. Overall, I was quite impressed with this pay-per-view, to be honest. I wasn't expecting much from it, but it was actually really, really good. So if you want to find out everything that happened there, and maybe even consider going and watching the show on the WWE Network, hashtag 999, then please watch the rest of this video and maybe I can convince you to do so. However, it will contain spoilers, obviously. In fact, speaking of spoilers, you can go over to the YouTube channel and click that subscribe button and like the video. But you may already be there already because, you know, you're watching the video. Join us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Don't forget to go over to the blogspot. That's cheapshotentertainment.blogspot.com. And there's a link there to the t-shirt shop and get some merchandise. And various articles that we're writing, including some that I don't know what I'm going to send to Turn Babyface yet, but we are in talks to be part of that groundbreaking app and website. So join us for King of the Ring 1993 in another Cheap Shot Entertainment classic review. So this King of the Ring was in June 1993. It was June the 13th, 1993. It hailed from the Nutter Center. Yes, that is an actual name for a place, the Nutter Center in Dayton, Ohio, in America's heartland, because Vince McMahon insists on telling us that every 5 seconds, as well as the commentators who are your commentators today. They are not Jerry the King Lawler, he comes later, I almost lost it there, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Macho Man Randy Savage, and a very young looking Jim Ross when he just joined the company. And they do a fantastic job of selling how important the King of the Ring is, or was. It's not that important anymore. I really hope that, because they are in the midst of doing that tournament now, as I mentioned in the intro, that they are going to actually do something with it, give the winner a title shot or something along those lines. 6,500 people packed into the Nutter Center. Lowest attendance for a King of the Ring while they were doing the pay-per-views, I believe, but however it was the highest buy rate on pay-per-views until 1999, the year of Mr. Ass, of course. Excuse me, my name's Billy. It doesn't matter what your name is. The Rock, everybody. Anyway, yeah, lowest attendance, biggest buy rate until 1999 for a King of the Ring pay-per-view. Anyway, the matches are as follows. 15-minute time limit for the quarterfinals, 30-minute time limit for the semi-finals, and a 60-minute time limit for the final to crown the first ever King of the Ring. But between you and me, we know that it's not, because Harley Race, the king, the late great Harley Race, was the first ever King of the Ring in WWE. So your first match is a doozy. It is Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon. It is speed and quickness versus power. Of course, Razor Ramon does have those traits as well. He is quite quick, and he is quite technical when he wants to be, obviously towering above Bret Hart in this one. Bret does get technical. Razor Ramon uses his power to break out of everything that Hitman puts on him. Doesn't take long for Hitman to get back to the headlock, which he'd locked in before. Razor Ramon manages to take control and uses his strength to cut the Hitman down to size. Now, if you take a technical man down to size, technical guys cannot put on technical moves. So that is a good strategy from Razor Ramon. Fall away slam and a power slam, showing his power to take out the Hitman, and continues to work over Bret Hart. Hitman hits an atomic drop, an inverted atomic drop, and a clothesline, followed by a Russian leg sweep, a flying elbow, and gets the first near fall of the match. Strong Irish whip by Razor Ramon, showing his power again, turning the tides like that, and takes out the Hitman again, hits the corner hard, and Razor's edge is then countered into a roll-up. Suplex by Razor Ramon is countered into a cross-body, and Bret Hart picks up the victory over Razor Ramon. Really good match, this one. Really enjoyed this one. Really liked these two guys when I was watching these shows back in the early 90s. The Hitman, Razor Ramon, two of my favourites. And the Hitman advances to take on either Mr. Hughes or Mr. Perfect in the semi-finals, rather. Speaking of Mr. Perfect versus Mr. Hughes, that is the next match. It is Mr. Perfect versus Mr. Hughes, as I've already mentioned. The initial flurry by Mr. Perfect. He is now a face. The crowd is cheering for him. Last time I saw him, he was beating up the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man at SummerSlam 1992, because that's the last classic review I did, and you can see that on the channel. Anyway, let's get back to King of the Ring 1993. So the initial flurry by Mr. Perfect is stopped by Mr. Hughes, and one thing I did notice throughout this pay-per-view is that the matches basically tell the same story. They're set up exactly the same. You've got a big guy versus technical guy, apart from Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart, which was probably the match of the night in terms of the tournament. They're all set up that kind of way. But Mr. Hughes sends Perfect out of the ring with a huge throw, presses him over the top, and Hughes follows him outside, slows down the pace, beats up Mr. Perfect a little bit more. Focus on the neck of Mr. Perfect, which he hurt as he went out of the ring. But as Mr. Hughes is getting a bit more confident, noticing that Mr. Hughes' glasses stayed on all the way through this match, did have a little headband round the back of them. And yeah, Mr. Hughes getting a bit more cocky as we go on in this match, but he then tries a move, misses, and he crotches himself on the rope. And I don't care how big you are, 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot, you hit those ropes with your tender area, it is going to take you down. And that is exactly what it does. He went to Dick Kick City, not quite Dick Kick City, Dick Rope City. I don't know. Yeah, we won't even go there. And Hughes hits Perfect with the urn getting frustrated that Mr. Perfect is coming back. So the urn belongs to the Undertaker. Mr. Hughes is in a feud with the Undertaker. He hits Perfect over the back of the head with it, taking him down, losing the match. Mr. Perfect advances to take on Bret Hart in the semi-finals of the King of the Ring by disqualification. So yeah, that is that match. Probably, I mean, Mr. Perfect does a really good job of trying to make that match something that didn't really happen, but I can always respect Mr. Perfect for what he can do in the ring. Bam Bam Bigelow next, the best big man in the business, versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Ho! Click the like button and the subscribe button. Ho! Yeah, USA. I don't know. Bigelow. Again, this is set up. Big guy versus small guy. Although Hacksaw Jim Duggan isn't the small guy really. Bigelow misses a headbutt early on. Goes for the flying headbutt, but has done massive damage to Hacksaw in the early going of this match, taking control completely over Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Hacksaw does get a little bit of a comeback here. He starts hitting Bam Bam Bigelow with some big right hands, tries to hit the 3-point stance. He hits the 3-point stance, goes for the American football sort of tackle. Well, as if you've got to take Bam Bam Bigelow down with a tackle. But he misses anyway, he hits the post, and Bam Bam Bigelow climbs to the top. If you've never seen a 300+ man fly, this is when you do it. 300 pounds off the top rope, diving headbutt, and picks up the win over Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Fairly short match, this one. Can't say that it was great, but it served a purpose. Bam Bam Bigelow advances to the semi-finals, take on the winner of Narcissist Lex Luger and Tatanka, which is the next match on our card. Lex Luger, the Narcissist, versus Tatanka. Tatanka's on a bit of a roll. He is undefeated, so I understand at this point in the in WWE. He may have actually been defeated by this point, I don't know. I'll have to have a look that up. But Tatanka, the Native American, comes in with a lot of fanfare. I really loved Tatanka when I was little, when I was watching these shows. Lex Luger I also had the figure of, thought he was great. I respect him now more as a heel, because he sucked as a face when he did the whole Mr. USA Lex Luger thing in 1994, and we got Lex Luger on a bus. But yeah, the Narcissist comes down, the music to go with it, got the fireworks, the mirrors, just like looks at himself and stuff. But strangely in this match, obviously there was a big thing about Lex Luger having plates in his forearm, and that's what he used to knock people out, and that's how he won the matches. So in this match, before the match even starts, Lex Luger is forced to put on an elbow pad. I mean, a really thin elbow pad. It's not going to do anything. The plates are here, the elbow pad's here. Kayfabe, everybody. Anyway, he puts on the elbow pad reluctantly because the referee says that he's going to disqualify Lex Luger if he does not put on the elbow pad. So he puts it on. At this point, he puts it on, clocks Tatanka, and Tatanka rolls to the outside to collect himself. Lex Luger, feeling pretty cocky at this point, goes back to the mirror, starts flexing and buffing and doing his thing. Tatanka comes from behind the mirror, tips the mirror up on top of him. I thought that was absolutely hilarious, absolutely brilliant. I love that spot because it's the way that Luger reacts, and he overreacts to everything. I don't know. He overreacts to everything, and the scream that he let out, having a plastic mirror tipped over on his forehead, was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, the match starts from there. Both guys beat each other up for the whole 15 minutes. It goes one way, it goes the other way. Towards the end of the match, it is Lex Luger who is fully on top. We do get a countdown from 2 minutes. Lex Luger tries to pin, near fall. He wastes a bit of time, wastes too much time, because we get a 1 minute count at that point. And then we get a 30-second count. It takes 3 seconds to pick up the victory here. Lex Luger is still on top, still messing around, still trying to beat up Tatanka even more. And the time runs out on Tatanka and Lex Luger. It is a time limit draw, and Bam Bam Bigelow gets a bye into the final. So he is going to be nice and fresh for whoever wins between Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect. Now, after the match, Lex Luger gets on the microphone and says, "I want to finish this match, I want 5 more minutes." Referee says, "No, you can't have 5 more minutes." Lex Luger, it was all a ruse, takes the elbow pad off, clocks Tatanka around the back of the head with that elbow, with the forearm, and knocks out Tatanka and leaves. Loving Lex Luger at this point in time. Maybe I'm just in the minority here, but he plays a really good heel. Yeah, so that's the end of that match. Time limit draw. Bam Bam Bigelow gets a bye, and Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect have to fight in the next round. We next get passed to Mean Gene Okerlund, the late great Mean Gene Okerlund, who is conducting an interview between Bret the Hitman Hart and Mr. Perfect, and it is the most schoolyard interview that you could ever have. Bret Hart starts by saying, "I'm a second generation superstar." Mr. Perfect says, "I'm a second generation superstar." Bret Hart says, "My dad beat your dad." Mr. Perfect says, "My dad beat your dad. Your dad could never beat my dad. My dad's going to beat your dad up, and your dad's going to get a beating, and my dad can beat." Yeah, you get the point. You get it. It's dead funny. It's like 2 5-year-olds conducting an interview at a wrestling show. It's so hilarious, and you can tell it's not scripted, because they really get passionate about this. You know, my dad can beat your dad. That's something they used to say when you were 5 years old. And it's ridiculous. But Mean Gene Okerlund, as ever, the professional in the interviewing circle of wrestling, kept both guys in check and kept the interview going and coherent, shall we say. Well, Bret Hart did come up as an interview box in the corner of the screen as Mr. Perfect was going against Mr. Hughes, and said that he would rather face Mr. Perfect because of the endurance part of Mr. Perfect's arsenal. So it is Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. It is the sharpshooter versus the Perfect Plex. These two have a very storied rivalry. They have very salty pasts, as Macho Man had alluded to during the match. Schoolyard interview is done. We get into the action now. Lots of rest holds, lots of quick exchanges here. Both guys not showing any signs of fatigue from their first matches. Bearing in mind that Bret Hart went against Razor Ramon, who becomes one of the greatest superstars in wrestling history, and Mr. Perfect went against Mr. Hughes, who became one of the laughingstocks of WWE and wrestling history. But it's a big guy, still had to beat him, you know. He did get clocked around the back of the head with the urn as well. So, like I say, both give a quick exchange. Hitman opening to lock in the side headlock. Again, like I say, lots of rest holds here, trying to wear each other down. Mr. Perfect goes deep into his heel playbook here as the tides turn. He gets frustrated with Bret Hart, frustrated that he's been put in lots of headlocks and lots of rest holds. Goes into his heel playbook, takes out the legs of Bret Hart, because that is the way he hits his Perfect Plex. If you can lock the legs in without people being able to kick out, that is perfect. Absolutely perfect. After a good beating, the Hitman hits a superplex off the second rope. Mr. Perfect is going up to the second rope, going to hit a big move. Bret Hart counters him, hits a superplex before applying the figure four leg lock, and this is just a technical masterpiece of wrestling. It is such a good match, really good match. It ends with a roll up, a counter from the Hitman to a Mr. Perfect move. In fact, no, it ends up as a counter to a roll up from Mr. Perfect. Bret the Hitman Hart shifts his weight and rolls up Mr. Perfect. And again, like I say, technical masterpiece, really good match. Not long enough in my opinion, because we get a longer match for Bam Bam Bigelow versus the Hitman in the final, which is now set in stone. It is the Hitman versus Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam Bigelow has had more time to rest in this tournament, but Hitman goes through into the finals. The Hulkster is on next, brother, and he is talking to Mean Gene Okerlund again. He talks about Yokozuna. Jimmy Hart has Hulk Hogan's face painted on his jacket, and that is the focus point of most of this interview, which I find really weird. He talks Yokozuna. Yokozuna of course lost the championship, having beat Bret Hart for it at WrestleMania 9. Hulk Hogan comes down, slams Yokozuna, hits a big leg, and wins the title in about 30 seconds, undoing all of that really hard work that Yokozuna has been putting in to be this monster heel. And I really liked Yokozuna, not back in the day obviously, because I was a bit of a mark, and like, you know, I always went for the good guys, but now looking back at him, for how big he was, just his ability in the ring was phenomenal. Obviously he couldn't jump off the top ropes or anything like that, but he was quick, he was agile, and he knew how to use his size. Anyway, it is the WWE Championship now. It is Hulk Hogan, the WWE Champion, 5-time WWE Champion, versus Yokozuna, who's looking to pick up that championship once again. Yokozuna shows his power early on. Yokozuna uses his size and his power to his advantage and dominates the champion for most of this match. Now, Hulk Hogan is not really used to, I'm not really used to seeing Hulk Hogan be so dominated in a match, really. But Hogan uses his quickness to skip under a clothesline from Yokozuna, tries to hit a clothesline of his own, tries it again, tries it third time, Yokozuna, bang, clothesline, Hulk Hogan goes down with one shot. Gets clocked in a clothesline, like I just said, tries for a splash at this point. Can you imagine 550 pounds coming down on your sternum? It would feel like you were in a collapsing building. It would be awful, horrible, disgusting, nasty. But he misses, of course. Hulk Hogan rolls out of the way, gives Hogan time to regroup. Hogan goes down again from Yokozuna, and like I say, he's really asserting his dominance here. Yoko goes for the bear hug. Hulk Hogan powers out, 1, 2, 3, and then he tries a big boot. He hulks up, he hulks up, he hulks up, yeah, does all that kind of stuff and goes, you. Oof, ooh, yeah, three times punches, thrown into the rope, Irish whip into the rope for Yokozuna, big boot, doesn't work. Second time, doesn't work. Third time, doesn't work. And tries it again. Yokozuna goes down eventually, and Hulk Hogan hits the big leg. Yokozuna powers out, gets a near fall. Hulk Hogan is astonished by this, and he having had someone kick out of his big leg. Now that wouldn't swing today, but back in the day the big leg was the ultimate finishing move. Hogan sees a cameraman on the side of the ring. Obviously WWE like to play up the Japanese part of Yokozuna, even though he's from Samoa and part of the Inoki family, cousins, relations of The Rock and Roman Reigns, and of course the Usos. The camera explodes in Hogan's face and Hogan goes down. Yokozuna hits a big leg of his own, and that is the end of the match. £500 coming down across the bridge of your nose. You ain't getting up from that, pal. Hogan gets helped from the ring as Yokozuna poses for pictures, and Bobby the Brain Heenan is playing up his completely heel persona here. This is going to be on every front page in Japan, in the Orient, in wherever. Yokozuna is now your WWE champion again for the, I think this is for the second time, because he only came in, he didn't come in that long before. I think I can't remember actually, but he hadn't been in the company very long, but he's obviously picked up the championship twice at this point, so that's good. Excuse me. So Yoko sets up after the match. He sets up Hulk Hogan for a bonsai drop and hits the bonsai drop and squashes the American Dream. A quote from Macho Man Randy Savage there. Squashes the American Dream in the corner and just puts the exclamation point on the match, taking out Hogan. It would be Hulk Hogan's last pay-per-view match in the company before heading off to WCW for the big money. But there you go, that's it. That's Hulk Hogan last pay-per-view appearance until 2002 when he came back as the NWO, injecting a lethal dose of poison into the WWE. Yeah, we'll forget about that. Anyway, next, an 8-man tag team match. Didn't really see what was going off in this match because there's so much humanity in the ring, and it is the Steiners, Rick and Scott Steiner, and the Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart Gunn. Yeah, they call him Bob because Bob Holly, but that's another tag team. That's the new Midnight Express. Money Inc., Ted DiBiase and Owen R. Shyster, who I've come to appreciate more and more over the years, and the Head Shrinkers, of course, Fatu and Samu. Fatu is the dad of the Usos. We know him as Rikishi Fatu these days, and of course he was related to Yokozuna and Roman Reigns and The Rock. Yes, because we all know, we found out years later in the year 2000 that Rikishi did it for The Rock, and he did it for the people. But that's for another video maybe. So the face team win as Billy Gunn picks up the win with a roll up in the middle of the ring. And that is the extent of the notes that I took for this match, because it was crazy. It all breaks down after the match anyway, and they start beating each other up. I mean, not to badmouth the booking here, but surely a tag team championship match would have been a bit better placed in this area. You've got 4 teams obviously wanting tag team gold here. Oh no, like no, the Money Inc. were the champions at this point actually. Yeah, so why not have a fatal 4-way tag team match? Maybe that wasn't a thing back in the day, but yeah, it could have been a tag team championship match at least, I think. Anyway, one of the sleeper hits on the card was the Intercontinental Championship match. It was Shawn Michaels versus Kona Crush. Crush came in to the WWE being part of Demolition. Demolition died. And he came back with his new persona, Kona Crush. Obviously, he's from Kona, Hawaii, bright colours on his singlet, obviously being the 90s as well, it worked really well. and he's made a name for himself. He's had a bit of a feud with Doink the Clown, one of my favourites these days. Again, back in the day, it wasn't quite like that. But after Crush uses his power and his strength to dominate Shawn Michaels in this match, usually the way that Shawn Michaels matches went at this point in his career, he got beaten up for ages, and then he made a comeback, or something happened to give him the win. Diesel does get involved in this match in several points during the match, and distracts Crush for Shawn Michaels to gain the advantage. Of course, Diesel is down with Shawn Michaels as his bodyguard, and that is how we get introduced to Diesel, or Kevin Nash, or Super Shredder, as it were. Anyway, yeah, so the match ends. Crush is on top. He's about ready to crush Shawn Michaels with the vice grip. As Doink the Clowns, yes, there are two, he's seen double, just like WrestleMania 9. Doink the Clowns march down to the ring like this, in perfect unison. If I didn't double take, I would think I was seeing double. Doink the Clown comes down to the ring, distracts Crush. Shawn Michaels hits the super kick to the back of Crush's head and picks up the victory, retaining his championship, and moves on to the next feud, really. And Doink the Clown and, like I say, Crush have been having a feud for quite a while at this point, so you'd expect that to come to a head at some point soon after this pay-per-view. But Shawn Michaels picks up the victory, keeps his Intercontinental Championship round his waist, and we are going to move on to the finals now of the King of the Ring tournament. And the finals of the King of the Ring tournament for 1993 at the Nutter Centre on June 13th, 1993 in Dayton, Ohio, America's heartland, was Bam Bam Bigelow versus Bret the Hitman Hart. Of course, Bam Bam Bigelow, as we said earlier in the video, had a bye into the finals. He was nice and fresh for the finals. Hitman has gone through some grueling matches with Razor Ramon and Mr. Perfect to boot, and gets into the finals the old-fashioned way, by winning matches. Now, everything they did booking-wise on this pay-per-view was, you could question. What they did really well at this point in time, WWE, was making people feel for the baby face, making people want to boo the heels, cheer the baby faces. They stacked everything against the babyface Bret Hart, the crowd favourite. They stacked everything against him, gave him 2 matches and a bye for his opponent, 2 very grueling matches, I might add, and now even had people run in and distract him and hit him with things, and just made Bret Hart the champion of the WWE. Of course, former WWE champion, he'd think he would get a championship match after this. Bigelow, though, does get complete control in the early on of this match, showing that he is fresher, he is more rested than Bret the Hitman Hart. Hitman Hart has had a couple of matches. The last match was around about half an hour before this one, so he didn't have much time to regroup. Halfway through the match, the action spills outside. Bret Hart has been thrown out of the ring. He is crawling around in the entranceway, trying to regroup, trying to beat the 10 count of the referee. Luna Vachon comes down with a chair and clocks the Hitman over the back of the head with it, taking him down again. Again, the referee doesn't see it. Bam Bam Bigelow is distracting the referee at this point, and Luna scurries off into the back, taking the chair with her, obviously. Bret Hart, again, like I say, they do everything to make you feel for the face here. Bigelow just gets loads of heat here and just boos throughout the building. Bigelow wins after hitting a diving headbutt in the middle of the ring, and picks up the victory. We think he is the king of the ring. We think he's gotten away with it. No! Earl Hebner comes out. I think it's Earl. It could be the other Hebner. I don't know. They're twins. Can't tell them apart. Earl Hebner, I believe, comes out of the back, tells the referee that was refereeing this match that Luna Vachon got involved and shouldn't, and the match should continue and get in the ring. And the match does continue. Howard Finkel does get it wrong at this point. It says the referee has reversed the decision. Everyone goes wild. It's like, yeah, Bret Hart's the champion. No, 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 no. It is a continued match. The match continues. Bigelow continues where he left off and starts beating up Bret the Hitman Hart. Hitman does get a bulldog and tries for his sharpshooter, but Bigelow powers out his massive tree trunk like legs. And obviously Bret Hart hasn't had much offense in this match as well, so you know, you can't really take down someone who's very fresh and he hasn't been worn down a lot. We know this from playing WWE games. It's one thing that they do really well on WWE games. You've got to wear your opponent out before you can win. Match ends with a victory roll from Bret Hart, and he is the first ever King of the Ring. Bam Bam Bigelow doesn't go without a fight. Starts beating up Bret Hart though, and he does eventually get to the podium where he's going to pick up his crown, his cape and his scepter, making him the most most obvious king that you could. I mean, this is stereotype king stuff here. But the real king comes out to disrupt the celebrations. The King, Jerry Lawler, comes out, says to Bret Hart, "You're not the king, you're an imposter," and he could be Prince out of the goodness of the king's heart. Hart can kiss his royal feet if Jerry the King Lawler lets him, and this is where we get the feud that no one wanted, because Bret Hart should have been in the championship picture at this point, but we get it anyway, and we also get introduced to Isaac Yankem throughout this feud. Bret the Hitman Hart is the king of the ring. Jerry Lawler comes out, does attack Bret Hart after Bret Hart gets the crowd to chant Burger King at Jerry the King Lawler. We have our own very own Burger King in Hope Wrestling. Hi Liam, if you're watching, hello. Not Burger King anymore, he is Jack Cave, and he is the hardcore champion at Hope Wrestling. So Jerry the King Lawler gets a bit upset by this and smacks Bret Hart over the head with the scepter, stomps on the crown and throws the robe away, throws the throne on top of Bret Hart, which looks really painful actually, because it looks like a proper sort of massive chair thing they threw on Bret Hart. Bret Hart looking like he's just completely out of it. The camera cuts as Jerry the King Lawler is still stomping on the crown. He says, "I'm the real king, I'll show you, you can kiss my royal feet," and the camera fades to black. I was really astonished by this pay-per-view. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, and I did. They were doing lots of things right in 1993, much like it's very similar now in 2019. They're doing lots of things right, but people like to pick out the negative things. Positives, Bret Hart was the obvious choice of King of the Ring. Again, another positive was Bam Bam Bigelow getting to the finals as well. Furthering the feud between Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect was a good choice as well. Razor Ramon Obviously picking up the loss here, but does become more relevant later on as he turns face and starts going for the Intercontinental Championship. You've still got Money Inc. here. The bad things here, the 8-man tag match. Mr. Hughes versus Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect did try, but it wasn't great. But yeah, there's not a lot to pick out that I didn't really like about this pay-per-view, really. The ending to the WWE Championship match, thought it would have been a lot better if Yokozuna could pick up the clean victory over the Hulkster. Would have made him look more badass rather than a massive guy, a massive heel who could obviously handle himself in a ring. He's very, very good. Needing like powder and salt and someone lighting flash paper in his opponent's faces to win. It shouldn't be like that for Yokozuna, and so it turned out that it wasn't really like that. Although it would continue this trend later on. Maybe I will do Royal Rumble 1994 at some point before next year, and post that before Royal Rumble 2020. 2020, people! Wow! But yeah, overall, really good pay-per-view. I'd give it at least a 3.5-star rating. Very, very watchable pay-per-view, King of the Ring. Just hope that they do something really good with whoever wins this King of the Ring tournament that's going off as we speak. Because the last pay-per-view, the last King of the Ring winner, who was the last King of the Ring winner? Was it Wade Barrett? No, I can't think it was Wade Barrett, because he won it in no. It might have been Wade Barrett. The King of Bad News, yeah, quite possibly. But yeah, they didn't really do anything with him. Just hope they're going to do something with whoever wins this King of the Ring, like they used to. It used to be so good. Brock Lesnar was one of the winners, and they made him into a monster heel. He won the championship that year. Owen Hart the following year, 1994, good winner. We'll skip over Mabel. But then you've got Hunter Hearst Helmsley, you've got Ken Shamrock, you've got Mr. Ass, and the list goes on and on and on. But yeah, it was brilliant. Oh no, it was 96 was Austin, actually. 97 was Helmsley, 96 was Austin. How could I forget that? It was the birth of Austin 316. Maybe I'll do that one, actually. Maybe I'll do that one. And by now you can tell that I really love the concept of King of the Ring. I love tournaments. I've been loving the recent tournaments, the Mae Young Classic, the Cruiserweight Classic, and the UK Championship tournament that have been going off in WWE. I really like tournament settings for wrestling. I think they tell a great story, and the winner is always worthy, whether he's heel or face. The winner is always worthy, having gone through many opponents to get to that point. Like WrestleGate in July, that was tournament based, Emerald Grand Prix, and the winner deserved to be the winner, which was great. Anyway, King of the Ring 1993. Do I recommend that you go and watch this pay-per-view? Yes, because if you've not got Sky, you cannot watch Raw and SmackDown, so you don't really get an idea of what the King of the Ring is. You still don't really get an idea of what the King of the Ring is from the way they do things now, because they do a lot of the qualifiers on SmackDown and Raw and just have the finals on a pay-per-view. And as they did the semi-finals and the finals on the pay-per-view, you get an idea of what it takes to win a tournament in wrestling. Obviously they know who's going to win, but if you're a young'un and you're just getting into wrestling, this is nothing better than having a tournament in wrestling. Anyway, yes, I recommend you go and watch this pay-per-view. King of the Ring 1993 is one of the better pay-per-views of 1993. Very poor year as far as it goes. I remember WrestleMania 9 being the first VHS, WWE VHS, that I ever bought in terms of a pay-per-view. Looking back at it now, I can see why it was universally panned. They did eventually get back on track. You know, you got King of the Ring and SummerSlam and Survivor Series of that year, but yeah, I really like this pay-per-view. I'd recommend going to see it. And if you liked the video and you liked this classic review, please leave a comment down below. Let us know what you want us to classically review next. Plenty of things to go at. I'd like to try and keep it within the month of what we're doing. So like say this one, King of the Ring, this King of the Ring tournament going off. I did SummerSlam review last month because it was SummerSlam month. Oh, it's still this month. And yeah, just, you know, like, I mean, you've got Clash of Champions coming up. If there's a Clash of Champions that you really want me to review, I will go and do that. I've got access to the network. Obviously, it's a WCW pay-per-view. I don't mind going back and watching some WCW stuff as well. So leave us a comment, let us know what you want me to review next for the classic reviews. Like I say, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, notification bell to know when we upload new content to the channel, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and the blogspot, as well as clicking on that link for the t-shirt shop and picking up some merch. Once again, you are the Cheap Shot Nation, and I have been your host, Luke. And we will see you next time for more classic reviews. Don't forget to check out the channels. Lots of stuff going off at the moment. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for watching and subscribing. We love you all. Goodbye.